No spin, no bias, no censorship. I'm Dan Wootton. This is Outspoken, episode number 312. Charlie Kirk, a future American president, husband, and father, shot dead at 31. And breaking right now, reports from Stephen Crowder suggest the cartridges found with the potential murder weapon near the shooting scene were engraved with wording on them expressing transgender and anti-fascist ideology. Horrifying, yes. Surprising, no. We all knew that this was a political assassination. But this is a very dark day in the United Kingdom too, as the Turning Point founder was also one of the greatest allies in our need for a new English revolution, with his final video posted just 2 hours before his assassination at a Utah university, a warning about the death of Britain.
It's also the tradition that built the West. America is not America without England, period. America is a transference of the best of England. And yes, we had a revolution, but in some ways we're still sister countries, and we brought English common law and separation of powers and this idea of natural rights. We didn't just come out of that ex nihilo. It is an inheritance that we derived from your country, from the Magna Carta to the Declaration to the Constitution.
Now, the other man in that interview, Tommy Robinson, is standing by to join me for an exclusive interview reflecting on Charlie Kirk's brutal murder. He's feeling very emotional today, but also very passionate. And he's going to reveal what Kirk's killing means for the fight for the right and whether it will change his plans for the massive Uniting the Kingdom rally on Saturday. So do stand by. Tommy Robinson coming up exclusively very soon. We're also exclusively joined today by Nick Tenconi and Jack Ross, the bosses of Charlie's organisation Turning Point UK. They say that his murder is a declaration of war. But in my digest next, I'll reveal why the hard left and corrupt MSM have also shown their true colours over the horrifying past 18 hours.
Live by the sword, die by the sword. He did say that gun deaths were an acceptable side effect of gun rights.
Falsehoods and conspiracy theories on issues including COVID-19, climate change, and the 2020 US election.
Go to.
Now, the news is about to completely come to a halt, and everybody's supposed to just pause and take a minute because of one guy. One guy.
You can imagine the administration using this as a justification for something.
He wasn't admired and loved by all. So that
They are despicable. They are evil. So many of them are actually mentally ill. And we're going to have analysis coming up from Rafe Hadelman-Koo of the New Culture Forum. Also coming up on the show, 2 other major pieces of breaking news that we will, of course, cover. Peter Mandelson finally sacked as US ambassador over Jeffrey Epstein just 6 days before Donald Trump's state visit to the UK. But I'm going to reveal why his hiring by Slippery Starmer should now represent the end of our morally corrupt Prime Minister. He knew. And the royal family rocked as King Charles meets with Prince Harry. But we're going to reveal why the so-called reunion didn't go as well as the duplicitous Duke hoped. Then, in the uncancelled after show on Substack, Lady Colin Campbell is with me, www.outspoken.live. At the end of the show, we'll also reveal today's Greatest Britain and Union Jackass, your nominees. Bushra Sheikh, nominated by Sarah Booth for her despicable reaction to the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Prince Harry, nominated by Rose Juni for turning up at the Well Child Awards and making it all about his showmanship. But she says his performance was bordering on nauseous. And Joy Cheney, you just heard her there in that brief clip from the BBC, nominated by CJ Edmund, who says she is the BBC contributor who laughed at Charlie Kirk's death. And she says she is the most disgusting jackass. Let me know your reflections on Charlie Kirk as well in the live comments throughout the show. I'll read some at the end today, so do stay with us. Tommy Robinson and Turning Point UK both coming up with exclusive interviews. But now, let's go. Yes, America lost a future president. Donald Trump lost one of his closest allies. And the international independent media lost our leader. But as I sat frozen yesterday, trying to just take in the news that Charlie Kirk had been assassinated in front of students at a university, JFK style, simply for encouraging healthy and non-violent debate, I couldn't help but lament the fact that the UK has just lost a best friend. Britain is in trouble. Charlie knew it. And Charlie was one of the only people in the world brave enough to raise the alarm on the Islamist takeover of our disunited kingdom. And he did so with no fear. He cared what was going on here. I mean, when he joined my campaign earlier this year to free Lucy Connolly, I was so happy because it meant the world took note. He loved Britain. He loved Britain because he said that without us, there would be no America. But he could see what was happening here and was so determined to be part of the fight back.
The only difference between what I do and what you do is in my country, my government can't put me in jail for making a movie. I mean, they can put me in jail for other stuff, but we still have robust speech protections as it stands right now. The current regime wants to change that. I think that's a very important element as to why the UK has allowed this mass migration to happen without any sort of there's been some opposition. There's opposition now, but not serious opposition because of the lack of ability of robust speech protection. It's also the tradition that built the West. America is not America without England, period. America is a transference of the best of England. And yes, we had a revolution, but in some ways we're still sister countries, and we brought English common law and separation of powers and this idea of natural rights. We didn't just come out of that ex nihilo. It is an inheritance that we derived from your country, from the Magna Carta to the Declaration to the Constitution.
And that's why Turning Point UK, his British organisation, will today, right here on Outspoken, declare the death of their leader as a declaration of war. They can't win the argument democratically, this hard left mob, so now they are taking patriots out one by one. It is chilling. And my heart broke last night as Megyn Kelly announced the news we all feared live with one of Charlie's early mentors, Glenn Beck.
What are we waiting for, like, the AP to say it? We don't trust them more than we trust these. They're reporting that Charlie has died. That he's dead. At the age of 31. Which he would have to be if that video was real.
There's no way he survived that. The only good thing is, it had to have happened quickly.
Right. Right.
But tears soon turned to rage. And Donald Trump, in a powerful, emotional Oval Office address overnight UK time, made clear that the left have blood on their hands.
That violence and murder are the tragic consequence of demonizing those with whom you disagree day after day, year after year, in the most hateful and despicable way possible. For years, those on the radical left have compared wonderful Americans like Charlie to Nazis and the world's worst mass murderers and criminals. This kind of rhetoric is directly responsible for the terrorism that we're seeing in our country today, and it must stop right now.
And it was laughable with our free speech destroyer Slippery Starmer then trying to get on the act too, writing, We must all be free to debate openly and freely without fear. There can be no justification for political violence. Are you kidding me? As Restore Britain's Lewis Brackpool raged, if Kirk was British, you would have locked him up. Turning Point UK itself pointed out, your Deputy Prime Minister David Lammy described us and Charlie as sinister forces and xenophobic. Other Labour MPs have protested with violent far-left activists who attacked us. The language your party and the wider left uses to describe people like Charlie and us is the language that actually means we face violence. Shame on you. And Tommy Robinson raged, are you fucking for real? You would have had him locked up for speaking the truth. You coward, you wanker, Keir Starmer. You have attempted to encourage violence against us. Watch.
This wanker. These wankers have put targets on everyone. Keir Starmer is responsible for the sort of shit that happens there. Because he's put a target on every one of us with his smears and lies for telling the truth. Charlie Kirk told the truth. If Charlie Kirk lived in the UK, Keir Starmer would lock him up. How dare you make comments about his death? When you're responsible for this shit, people with your mindset, condemning people, putting targets on them, lying about them, and then pretending you give a shit. Absolute fucking hypocrisy.
Tommy is standing by right now. I'm going to ask him much more about that very shortly, so do stand by. But rather than look away, I actually think it's important to lean in and look at the left's ghastly reaction to the assassination of Charlie Kirk. After all, as we come on air today, Stephen Crowder is reporting that the cartridges found with the potential murder weapon near the scene are all engraved with transgender and anti-fascist ideology. That raises the stakes in this investigation, especially as the killer, the likely domestic terrorist, is still on the loose. As Piers Morgan said, seeing so many clips and posts of supposedly kind, tolerant liberals gleefully celebrating Charlie Kirk's murder, thus so utterly disgusting. This is what we're dealing with.
Live by the sword, die by the sword. He did say that gun deaths were an acceptable side effect of gun rights.
But the MSM on both sides of the Atlantic was actually no better. MSNBC suggested Charlie had been shot by a supporter and then immediately pivoted to how Trump was going to try and use the shooting.
Perfect, because as we were just talking about a moment ago with Alan, after one of the Doge employees was allegedly attacked in Washington, D.C., that's what Donald Trump used as justification to send in federal troops into Washington, D.C. to get things under control. The carjacking situation, he used that. And I know it's hard to predict the future, Mark, but you can imagine the administration using this as a justification for something.
I must admit, I'm at a loss to guess as to what happens next.
I'm at a loss at how sick and twisted you are. But it got even worse. TMZ staff openly celebrated, not realizing their bosses were broadcasting live in a next-door room.
If he's still on the loose because they want to find him. So I would think that that's one of the main reasons they're holding this news conference. So my guess is we're going to see an image of this guy possibly in the next 20 minutes. The news conference is scheduled for 3 o'clock in Utah time, which is 2 o'clock Pacific, 5 o'clock Eastern. Janet, go to have somebody look at the Fox. Trump just posted that Charlie Kirk is dead.
All right, so is this ready to pull the trigger when you get Trump cut in a second?
What did Trump say?
Yeah, who sent it?
So what did Trump say? Yeah, Trump just said he's dead.
Those disgusting cretins were literally whooping and hollering in Los Angeles Later, TMZ denied it, but I call bullshit. The BBC's Democratic contributor Joy Chennai knew that she was live on air when she laughed.
It is a really shocking moment, and I was thinking, I've never shared a Trump post in my life. I will contemplate sharing this one. But what I will say with a caveat, he wasn't admired and loved by all. So that's an exaggeration, but the truth is, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Sorry,
let me
Matthew,
finish.
go ahead.
It doesn't matter.
And the BBC presenter of that show blamed Trump.
That level of violence and political rhetoric, though, Matthew, does go all the way to the top, doesn't it? I mean, some of what President Trump has said in the past, some of the things he's posted on his social media, they fall into the category of what you're describing there.
Well, I mean, let's just be clear. I mean, let's be very clear here. You brought up Donald Trump's rhetoric. Donald Trump survived 2 assassination attempts.
At lunchtime today, they were still trying to pin this all on Trump. Listen to the BBC presenter
President Trump's
here.
Reaction there. Reckless?
I'm not going to jump in like that. I think the thing we need to take here is a man has lost his life. We've got children that no longer have a father and a wife that no longer has a husband.
Woke ITV and Sly News were no better.
Polarised American politics and the availability of guns has tonight claimed the life of one of President Trump's most prominent supporters.
And certainly he has been accused by critics of promoting falsehoods and conspiracy theories on issues including COVID-19, climate change and the 2020 US election.
So I definitely do think that definitely on the conservative side, they are going to start blaming the LGBTQ community as well. But I don't know how the other community feels about that. But I do think that there is a possibility for a divide in America right now, especially with this.
And he was known, as I was starting to say there, for speaking about some of the conspiracy theories surrounding things like COVID-19 or even the Trump election, January the 6th and so on. Is that, the influence he had, would that have drawn people to those views, do you think?
Oh, I definitely think so. Yeah. I mean, people were shouting USA, USA, Donald Trump in the beginning. So
yeah, people were really hyped up and then cheering all kinds of political stuff in the beginning.
Yeah, especially considering that Utah is a primarily Republican state. So everyone was really excited to come.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the British left have shown that they are both mentally ill and evil and out to cause harm. Look at this post from Instagram of Nadia Hussain. Do you remember that? The ex-BBC star who hosted the Bake Off, who actually, in marking Charlie Kirk's death, described him as a vocal Islamophobe and bigot who glorified violence. His life, she says, was a platform for division and fear. Fuck you. This is the type of rhetoric that caused Charlie Kirk's death. When are you going to get that through your head? Carol Vorderman's best friend, Sue Patansky, posted, MAGA twats and far-right flag shaggers will believe mad conspiracies like Bill Gates bumming 5G into people via vaccines, but not the possibility that the billionaire dictator hijacking the White House might stage an assassination attempt or kill people for political gain. That's one of his closest friends, you vile woman. She went on, those subjected to hate crimes because of him also have families. 3 kids are dead in Colorado today because of gun laws and a president he helped to get elected. Bushra Sheikh wrote, I'll pray for Charlie Kirk as much as he prayed for Palestinians. And at that point, I thought about one of Charlie Kirk's famous tweets. You learn a lot about someone in terms of how they react when someone else died. Femi Olawale continued down a similar path, writing, the same people who've spent the last 2 years telling us to treat the murder of 80,000 people in Gaza as an acceptable and justified loss are about to get real precious about the sanctity of one human life. before making this even more deranged video. Watch.
The same people who spent the last 2 years telling us to treat the murder of tens of thousands of innocent people in Gaza as an acceptable and justifiable loss are now about to get real precious about the sanctity of one human life. Like, we're expected to just go about our lives knowing that our taxes are going towards the ending of the lives of tens of thousands of people. Like, we're supposed to just carry on as normal. But right now, the news is about to completely come to a halt and everybody's supposed to just pause and take a minute because of one guy. One guy. Oh, and not just one guy, this guy.
Like a fraternity guy and a sorority girl at age 19 hooking up, both 5 drinks in at 2 a.m. and all of a sudden she like removes consent. Yeah, like that's a murky middle gray area. And excuse me,
She still removed consent, did she not?
Okay, but again,
if he continues to go onward with that encounter,
again,
then he is sexually assaulting her.
Again, that is such an unfair categorization. Like,
No,
again, it's very case dependent.
I think it's worth it. I think it's worth to have a cost of, unfortunately, some gun deaths every single year so that we can have the Second Amendment to protect our other God-given rights. That is a prudent deal. It is rational. Nobody talks like this. They live in a complete alternate universe.
I repeat, these people are sick. And the fact that Femi Olawale posts those clips thinking in some ways that justifies the murder of Charlie Kirk, I mean, I repeat, evil and mentally ill. Now, at least on GB News, Bev Turner finally lost it in the most brilliant way with their left-wing panelist Nina Mishkov, who she accused live on air of spreading hate towards people like her. It's a fascinating exchange. Watch.
And I'm sorry, but it's a bit rich to hear Nina Mishkov, who was one of the people who was the most bullying to me on TV, on national TV, who sat in a studio with me and demanded to know if I'd taken the COVID vaccine. And the implication was that would make me a good or a bad person. Well, guess what? That attitude is leading us to today, where the entrenchment of views, where we are supposed to do away with nuance, we do away with any sort of ability to have a conversation, to shake hands with the person and say, I don't agree with you necessarily, but I still respect your opinion. That got flushed away in 2020. I was cancelled, I was censored, I was told I was a bad person, I was going to kill grandma because of the position that I was taking. And so I'd like to hear people like Nina Mishkov just admit that at some stage during the last 5 years, they played a part in the fact that we've got to the point now where free speech is considered dangerous because it has become left versus right. I never cast myself as left or right. I still actually don't to this day. I see myself as very apolitical in terms of party allegiances. But we've got to the point where people are literally being killed because of their views. Charlie.
Okay, Bev, we'll obviously bring back Nina and speak to her after you've made a series of sort of accusations and comments towards her. But while I've got you, I just on vaccines, for example, during the pandemic. What's your reaction to what Bev Turner's had to say tonight?
Well, I couldn't hear absolutely everything she said because the sound in the studio is not good. But I remember exactly the incident. It was on the Jeremy Vine show, and we were perfectly. There was no debate. It's a debate programme. I didn't cut down free speech. I merely inquired of her whether she had which vaccine she had, and then asked her. When she was talking about her views, whether she was an epidemiologist or a virologist, because she was making out, as far as I can... And this is awful that we should be discussing this when this is not the topic tonight. And so, therefore, I'm not going to say any more than that. There was plenty of discussion. I am very surprised that Beverly has been unprofessional enough to bring this up, to make this about her and some slight from 5 years or so ago, and when she should be doing her job. And I can only think it's perhaps the setting up of GB News in America, and she's overtired and she needs a bit of a lie down in a darkened room.
Okay.
And let's leave it at that.
OK, Nina. Well, I think Bev Turner can fight for herself. Mark Littlewood, look.
Typical. Absolutely typical response. When will the left, including the left in the United Kingdom, wake up to the reality that their hate has consequences? Van Jones attacked Charlie Kirk on CNN one day before his death.
hurt people. What happened was horrible, but it becomes an opportunity for people to jump on bandwagons. And then for someone like Charlie Kirk, he should be ashamed of himself. No one mentioned the word race, white, black, or anything except him. What people mention is the horror of what happened to this young woman.
That prompted Charlie to dig up this old video.
Even the most liberal, well-intentioned white person has a virus in his or her brain that can be activated at an instant. And so what you're seeing now is a curtain falling away. And those of us who have been burdened by this every minute, every second of our entire lives are fragile right now.
And as he wrote, that all white people have a virus in their brain is legitimately one of the most racist things I've ever heard. That is one of Charlie's final tweets. He knew about the scourge of anti-white racism. Of course, we do not know his killer yet. It is chilling that he is on the loose. But breaking right now, the FBI have in the past few moments released this image of a man, a person of interest wanted in connection with the assassination of Charlie Kirk. And the suggestion is that the cartridges, the bullet cartridges, may have been engraved with trans and Antifa propaganda. Perhaps one of the most chilling things is that Charlie was so smart. I think he knew what was coming. He wrote recently, assassination culture is spreading on the left. 48% of liberals say it would be at least somewhat justified to murder Elon Musk. 55% said the same about Donald Trump. In California, activists are naming ballot measures after Luigi Mangoni. The left is being whipped into a violent frenzy. Any setback, whether losing an election or losing a court case, justifies a maximally violent response. This is the natural outgrowth of left-wing protest culture tolerating violence and mayhem for years on end. The cowardice of local prosecutors and school officials has turned the left into a ticking time bomb. And trust me, that ticking time bomb exists here in the UK too, where just this week, Labour's John McDonnell, the former Shadow Chancellor, likened Nigel Farage to Adolf Hitler and called Reform UK a fascist organisation, prompting Kevin O'Sullivan to write memo to John McDonnell. Reflect on Charlie Kirk's assassination and ask yourself if it's wise to reduce political debate to likening those with whom you disagree to the Nazis. Your cliched rhetoric about Reform UK was as juvenile as it was dangerous. Grow up, shame on you. And then Alex Phillips added this direct challenge to Keir Starmer. In an open letter, Dear Prime Minister, the age of vilification and demonisation must end. You have stood at a lectern and used words that became actual bullets. If you are human with humanity, you will see how destructive this now is. Be a leader. Signed, the people of the United Kingdom in fear and confusion. Now, during his last visit here, just a couple of months ago, Charlie Kirk had powerfully warned about the state of Britain and how we are now a conquered country.
The UK, what's your perception of the UK right now? I mean, as a country, and I'll get to the government, I mean, sadly, this place is a husk of its former self. This place needs to get its mojo back. I mean, this is the place that split the atom and invented the steam engine and brought common law to the world. And unfortunately, the perception amongst American conservatives is that this is increasingly a conquered country and that there is not a firm opposition to try to bring Britain back to greatness. I hope that's reform. We'll see what happens. It certainly isn't Labour and, Keir Starmer and all the nonsense that he's doing in this country. But look, I mean, we want this country to be great. America is Britain obsessed. And we talk about the royal family all the time. If you come in with a British accent, we take you more seriously. My friend Steve Hilton, who was an advisor to Cameron, is literally running for governor of California. We love this country from afar, and we're really sad about what's happening to it and what has happened to it. And I think that there's a potential political revolution that can happen in this country. I know it because I've lived through several.
With reform, are you talking about?
I don't even know. Yes, but like, I hope so because I like Nigel, but I'm not here to tell you what to do politically. I hate when foreigners come to America and say, vote for Republican, not Democrat. Like, okay, calm down. You don't live here. All I can do is, as an outsider, kind of like de Tocqueville coming to America, I can tell you right now, as an outsider who's seen themes and trends and patterns, there is an explosion waiting to happen in this country. There is mass repression, and here's why. People are coming up to me quietly, me as an American, who follow me on social media. Charlie, I love what you're doing. I wish I could speak out against it. There's so much, the silent majority is what we called it in America. Yeah. And President Trump tapped into that. And these are the muscular class of London. These are the people that are building your hotels. They're driving your taxis. They're the ones that really make London work. And they are so animated about how this country has been run down the gutter.
You got it, Charlie Kirk. And we needed you. And that's why they took you out. But Tommy Robinson is clear. Uniting the kingdom will go ahead as 1 million Brits will honour this hero on Saturday. And now, Tommy Robinson joins me. Tommy Robinson, in July 2018, Charlie Kirk posted, Sadiq Khan is trying to lecture the world on free speech while Tommy Robinson is locked in a London prison for speaking his mind. He knew, Tommy, what was going on here before virtually anyone else. You appeared on his show last year. Where were you when you heard the news?
I was sat at my mum's with Tyler Olivier, you know, the American YouTuber. I was sat doing an interview and I was looking at my phone and it popped up, Charlie Kirk shot. I said, Charlie Kirk's just been shot. And then obviously we were waiting to see, and then I saw the video. And then I think as soon as I saw the video, we knew he'd be dead when he saw the video.
And what do you think in that moment?
What did I think?
Yeah.
I'll be honest. I'll be totally honest with you. I thought my kids because I knew what they're going to think. And as soon as I then looked down at my phone, I saw my children's names all popping up because I knew that, I don't know, recently when I was in prison, Salwan Mamika was executed in an assassination in Sweden. And I'd made a video called Save Salwan, where I travelled out to speak to him because I knew he was going to be assassinated. And I knew that the governments and no one was taking it seriously or trying to protect him. And I knew when I rang home, my ex-wife told me that my son has not stopped crying and my children are scared because they've just seen him executed and assassinated. So I'm selfishly, when I saw what happened to Charlie, I just knew what my kids would be thinking. They'd be thinking that could happen to their dad.
And Tommy, do you feel that? Do you feel that this is a new era of political violence where voices are now just being taken out via assassination?
No, it's not new. This has been coming for a long time. It's encouraged by government. It's encouraged by NGOs. It's encouraged by far left organisations who lie, smear and label. And to see Keir Starmer sit and put out some grovelling statement on his social media. If Charlie Kirk lived in the UK, he'd be in prison. If Charlie Kirk would be one of the men that Keir Starmer put a target on, calling him far right, calling him racist, calling him extreme, calling him Islamophobe. That's who Keir Starmer is. Charlie Kirk, I think only now we're about to realise the legacy this man's about to leave. We're only going to see he was probably one of the greatest that's ever lived. When you listen to him, the influence he had, the peace that he brought, he would sit down and debate in the most professional fashion with anyone. He'd talk to everyone and he was lovely and kind and there was nothing that he had. Like with me, I've led street protest movements, I've challenged Islam, I've confronted it head on. Charlie just held debates. He held debates, but I think because of his level of influence, and I'm grateful because he has stood up for me when I look through the things he said for me. I think now if I was telling people, because I've just sat down with a podcast host who said that it made him think because he was meant to have a college debate. You see the legacy that Charlie talked about and will leave. And he spoke about courage. And he spoke about having courage even when you're fearful. Now, anyone who's sitting thinking now that they shouldn't host a debate, that they shouldn't go to a college, that they shouldn't speak out, that they shouldn't go to a protest, That will dampen and leave and darken the legacy the man leaves. What you now need to do is stand up. Now is the moment to stand up. Now is the moment to exercise your free speech. Now is the moment to speak truth to power. Now is that moment. It's not a moment where you back down. It's not. My messages are inundated, absolutely inundated here, with people telling me to be careful, be careful. What about Saturday? Maybe don't go, maybe this. That is the total wrong message. The moment now it is to go. It's more people now need to come out. Freedom of speech is not just a political right, it's a biblical right. And it's based on, and it's principled in truth, responsibility and courage. And that is the courage that Charlie Kirk spoke about. Let him and his life be an inspiration to bring courage. And you see when he spoke about faith and how he wants to be remembered, let it bring people to Christianity. Let it make people search for the truth. Let his life, and I'm watching and looking at the videos of his wife and his children. And the attack on this and the encouragement. And do you know now we're seeing people celebrate his death? And then we're seeing the Democrats, I'm seeing them boo and refuse to recognise and pay some respect. What you're going to witness this Saturday is 1 million people going to pay respect and gratitude to Charlie Kirk and to America, to all of them. We will make sure that his death and his life is honoured in London on Saturday. I just don't really think, I think for us all to take it in and see that a target was put on Charlie Kirk and a target is put on all of us, and it's put on us by governments. It's put on us by media, where what they do is they radicalise the public into thinking the person that may have killed him, we will soon to find out, I guess, and hopefully find out. But the people who attack us, the people who threaten us, a lot of the time they think they're making the world a better place. Mm-hmm. And they're doing that because their targets have been put on all of us. Justifications, dehumanising. And they've been allowed to do it. Do you know, like, we sit here, I was deplatformed from YouTube. Jihadists have got YouTube. Mm-hmm. I'm taken off of social media. The Muslim Brotherhood have got a Facebook account. It's like the unfair playing field where one side encourages political violence and police don't enforce laws. They sit back and they allow it to happen. The attacks on Republican figures, on commentators. But I think now, what I'd say to anyone, if you're scared, do not let his death be for nothing, because he demanded and encouraged courage. He demanded and encouraged people to stand up and speak the truth, regardless of consequence. Regardless of consequence. And the worst thing we could be thinking right now is, I'm not going to go because I'm scared. That leaves no legacy. His legacy is that hopefully he inspires people to stand up, to speak, to show courage. And I just think that, look, and I understand the fear. I sat there last night thinking about all of this as it was coming through, thinking about what it's like for his children who stood there and watched him bleed out. And what it's like for his family, his wife. What must it have been like for him to see that? And then obviously, again, selfishly, what it may be like for my mum now worrying about this. What it's probably like for lots of people's mothers, for their families, for their kids. But I just know that now is not the time. Now is the moment. Now has to be the turning point. Now has to be the time when you do stand up, when you don't back down, when if you've been worried and you've been fearful, you get up and you go. You go to London, you attend the demonstration, you continue the debates, you continue speaking out. Don't otherwise. You see what they've done? This attempt, continued attempts, is to put fear into you, is to silence you, is to prevent you speaking. You don't let them be successful in there. Don't let this barbarian and this murdering bastard who shot an innocent man dead in front of his family, don't let them win. And you will let them win if you stop speaking. You will let them win if you decide not to go there in case this happens. That's not how we live. Mm-hmm. That's not how we live, and it's not how we can allow ourselves to live. To live in fear. It doesn't mean you're not going to be scared. I just think only now we will realise what a great he was. Only now
Absolutely. As people... And Tommy, he understood what was going on in the United Kingdom. I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but his last live stream, which was broadcast on his X account.
Islam is going to be used. Is that it? Islam is going to be used by the left.
And it was headlined, "The Death of Britain." So he was acutely aware, especially when it came to Islam, of what was going on here. Of course, he was an American patriot, but he cared so much about what he saw happening in the United Kingdom too.
Dan, do you know how happy I was when I saw him talk about the problems? but to warn America that we've got to stop it. Because I thought at least there's someone so pivotal, so influential, so recognised and so respected by Trump, by all of them, who gets it, who's not backing down, who's warning them now before it's too late. They have to stop it. And we're going to find out who was behind it. But I think that he carried such weight and such influence. You have to understand that everything that's happened to America, everything that's happened in Britain has been planned. There are mass corporations, global powers that have spent billions and billions and billions and decades and decades and decades to get our countries into the state they're in. And he held influence. And he was awakening people. Obviously, look, I think that we are. I think that 1 million people we will have. The biggest protest in our country's history is coming this Saturday, where we stand for truth, where we stand against these things. And we will stand and honour Charlie Kirk because the influence he's had. But most importantly, we can't allow them to be successful. You can't allow that killer to be successful. You have to stand and do the total opposite to what his motives were. His motives was to instill fear, terrorise the public into silence on these most important issues of our generation.
Tommy, there is a bit of an irony, though, don't you think? Seeing the UK right unite over Charlie Kirk, which is obviously a very good thing, but these are people who consider you persona non grata, who consider you as someone who cannot be discussed in polite society, who must remain cancelled. Yet your message is hand in glove with what Charlie Kirk was saying.
And Charlie Kirk wasn't one of the people who wanted me cancelled. He stood up for me, spoke up for me time and time again. Every time when I was in prison, he used his platform. Do you know what? I was in prison and I respect Charlie Kirk and looked up to him and admire him. Yeah. And I think he was one of the most influential people in getting Trump elected. He was up there with changing young men to vote. And when I rang my son and he played me a recording of Charlie being interviewed whilst I was in prison, and Charlie was demanding that the American establishment sanction even the British to make sure that I'm freed. And that was a moment for me to sit and listen to someone of such influence speaking up on my behalf. It was a great feeling. And I'm very grateful to Charlie for that, for stepping up and speaking out and defending not just me, but defending all of us in Britain's free speech, to defending the attack on our country and witnessing and understanding what's happened. And I know when he just come to Britain recently, he went home and spoke to America about really they need to understand how lucky they are to have the free speech. So,
and he spoke about the Islam takeover of the United Kingdom without the fear that so many people have in the United Kingdom, worrying, are we going to be locked up?
And he would have been pivotal, and he was pivotal in starting to warn America. And who knows the motive or the reason at the minute. It's a political assassination. It's a kill shot. It's the same as what they would have done to Donald Trump. Who knows the lengths or the powers that have organised this or been behind this? Who knows if we'll ever know? But I think now has to be a turning point. It has to be, because they put targets on all of us, so they don't have to kill us. They don't have to kill us. I'm getting attacked in St Pancras train station, not because of things I've said, not because of anything I've done. It's because of what the government and the media have said. It's because of people like Camilla Tomlinson. Camilla Tomlinson put a target on me. She lied on her show and put a target on me. Nigel Farage. This is just people from the right who are uniting over what's happening to Charlie Kirk. Nigel Farage has continually put a target on me with false allegations and lies and smears, just blatant lies. So these people, that's what's happened. Julie Hartley-Brewer has put a target on me. I've got a target on me because of right-wing commentators who apparently are horrified by what's happened to Charlie Kirk. But they need to realise that those lies and smears and those false allegations are putting targets on people. I wouldn't mind if people come up to me and confront me over something I've said or done. But when they're confronting me over things that I haven't said or done, yet media personalities on the so-called right,
who should be allies. I mean, Camilla Tominay, unless she's been in touch with you, and I don't know about this, as far as I'm aware, still hasn't apologised for going on national TV and calling you a white supremacist.
She hasn't. And see, if she did, I'd accept the apology. And if she
needs to. I'm sorry. She needs to.
And if she had been lied to, and if she believed the smears in the media, I've sat down recently with a few podcast guests, big ones, who have apologised.
Trigonometry.
I did say these things about you because I did believe the media. So, and I get it. if you were lied to and you believe the media, but to use your daytime platform TV show to millions of people and make such accusations that hold no truth, and then to know then that they hold no truth, but to still not apologise or correct your lies. For example, Nigel Farage telling people I've got convictions for violence against women, telling the whole country that I beat women. There's no truth in that. It's a total lie. You made it up. It's a total lie. You made it up. And you've said that to people who may wish to confront me when they see me in the street because they believe I beat women. What's worse than beating a woman other than being a paedophile? And that is what Nigel Farage, the leader, probably the next prime minister of Great Britain, has put on me. So, of course, when people see, why do you keep getting upset? I'm upset by that. I'm upset by the fact that my children had to go to school the next day and my wife had to brief them on the fact that people may think their dads are violent against women because of what Nigel Farage has said. And people need to understand, if you've said something that's wrong, own it and stop justifying it and stop encouraging, because what that does, whether you accept it or not, by making false allegations against people as racist, as any of these labels, you are justifying violence against them by radicalised people, whether it be on the left or on the right. It's bullshit and it's lies. So I think that we're going off of now and talking about things that I shouldn't. I think we need to look at Charlie Kirk's life. We need to respect and honour him. And the way for us to honour Charlie Kirk is to speak and speak more and show more courage and show more defiance, not be weak. Do not change your plans in what you were doing. I'm not changing my plan. There's no way I'm changing my plan.
Brilliant.
So,
Brilliant.
And that's what everyone else should do.
Absolutely, we will remember Charlie Kirk on Saturday. Tommy, we'll speak more about uniting the kingdom and the plans for that on tomorrow's show. But right now, I want to bring in the heads of Turning Point UK. Nick Tenconi, Jack Ross, the driving force behind Charlie Kirk's UK arm of Turning Point. Condolences on what is a terrible day for the world. You write, they killed him because they couldn't debate him. Nick, you're overseas. How did you get this news?
Well, we've just finished being on tour in northern France, and it's been an incredibly hectic and very important mission over the last 3-4 days, which involves barely any sleep and doing what we set out to do, which was to patrol the borders of northern France in Calais, etc. And as we were leaving France yesterday, ready to go and make our entry back into Britain, the news broke. And to be honest with you, Dan, we're still in shock. Charlie was loved, admired and respected across the world as not only an incredible debater, a very talented and well-versed debater, but to lead the charge against far-left totalitarian propaganda, the very far-left totalitarian propaganda which is being used by insidious actors, agents, Marxist educators, unhinged lefties, those with hatred in their heart, to weaponize these individuals, be they liberal as they start out, moving forward to socialism, to full-blown communists. It is far-left totalitarian propaganda that is their weapon. That is to silence, that is to demonize, that is to denigrate anyone who opposes them. And they are continually ramping up their rhetoric to mainly to produce two things. One, create the amount of emotion and hatred that is required for far-left domestic terrorism, and to, in the case of Charlie Kirk, God rest his soul, start martyring those on the common sense conservative right by way of direct action, now as murdering an innocent man who was non-violent. He was a family man, 31 years old, is absolutely nothing. He's just getting started in life, and he's got 2 small children. And to be brutally murdered in the way that he has been has sent ripples throughout the conservative right, common sense movement. And we genuinely still are in shock. We're devastated, and our thoughts and prayers are with Charlie's family. It's absolutely devastating what's happened.
Jack, in your tribute, you posted to Charlie, you revived Christianity and shaped our politics for the better, Charlie, a true patriot, family man and hero, now a martyr. But Jack, he was also incredibly important for the fight that we have going on here in the United Kingdom. And it gave me chills that his final broadcast, which was simulcast on his X account just hours before his assassination, was headlined in part "The Death of Britain." He knew what we are facing here better than most people in this country.
Definitely. That's what always really impressed me about Charlie, is the fact he could debate on any topic. He was an incredibly intelligent man. I still to this day don't know how he did it, but you could ask him anything and he'd always have an answer, and he'd always have quite actually a reasonable position, be willing to talk and have that respectful debate. And that's why it's so chilling what happened, because Charlie was a really nice man. He was a really nice politician. When he'd debate left-wingers on campus, he'd ask the crowd to be polite to them. He'd always try and tee it up with please and thank yous and be good to them and respect them as a debating opponent. So the fact that he's been killed, he's been murdered, it's left us horrified. We're struggling to process it over here, because he was a man who pushed peace, he pushed Christian values, and respectful debate. And as we've put out there, they couldn't debate him, so they killed him. They didn't like he was having these conversations. He didn't like he was making more people politically aware, putting politics in a more accessible format for people, bringing young people away from hard left ideals and educating them about different political perspectives. It's no coincidence that a week after he was named the most influential man in US politics, when he was promoted on South Park, he's been assassinated.
I do have to ask you, Nick, about this post from the UK Prime Minister Slippery Starmer last night, which, let's be honest, has outraged many of us. Because within his tribute to Charlie Kirk, he wrote, "We must all be free to debate openly and freely without fear. There can be no justification for political violence." But as Turning Point UK, as you have quite rightly pointed out on your X account, the man who Starmer has just appointed to be the Deputy Prime Minister of the United Kingdom utterly slammed Turning Point UK. He described your organisation as evidence that sinister forces are taking hold of our country, describing you as xenophobic. So it feels like these are crocodile tears now from Starmer, does it not?
Absolutely. We were, in terms of the timeline last night, obviously we're still in shock, but it was seismic, the impact that it had on us as people who carried Charlie's torch in the UK and debated both liberals, those liberal-minded, and far left extremists on campus. We've been spat at, we've been attacked. I've been smashed over the head before. Jack's been attacked and spat at. People coming in with sharp objects countless times. This insane mindset, and I will involve liberal mindsets in this, because behind every socialist there's a liberal, behind every communist there's a socialist. This evil rhetoric and crocodile tears from our political leaders, it's painful to even say that. It just makes things, it adds and compounds to the shock, total outrage and disgust. The rhetoric that the left use in ministerial positions and backbenchers is completely denigrating and demonizing of those on the right, the patriotic Christian nationalist right, who stand for common sense and freedom of speech, ever since the radical trans lobby tried to have their way, which as a movement began in earnest somehow circa 10 years ago, for example. That was the final line for people that observe the ideology of conservatism and the faith of Christianity. Man is man and woman is woman. there are two sexes, and that you can't interfere with that. So that is the line that was drawn, and the left, Labour included, the Greens, the Yellows, they've all forced this narrative to say that actually, if you are conservative and you are peaceful and you want to debate and you want to put logic and facts to the front, away from emotion and psychological warfare, totalitarian propaganda, and emotional nonsense, which is what the left thrive off of, and the hatred, then you are therefore a Nazi. This rhetoric has been normalized, and it's been weaponized in the hearts of the bleeding heart liberals, the toxic socialists, and the murderous terrorists that are the communists. God forbid Starmer actually ever called out communism. If you listen to Donald Trump's 4.5-minute homage to Charlie Kirk, he mentions far left extremism more than once, and that he's going to declare war on it. And thanks be to God as well. So yes, Dan, Starmer has just added fuel to the fire by being so disingenuous. And what he should be doing is the right thing, which is to notify the British public that far left extremism and Islamism remains the number one threat to national security in Britain in 2025 still.
And I'll tell you...
Sorry, you go. Well, actually, just before you do, Nick, I was just going to say it's not going to happen because one of his MPs, John McDonnell, this week compared Nigel Farage and Reform UK to the Nazis. So this is now their playbook. He's still in the party.
I'll tell you the worst part about the David Lammy xenophobic comment. I remember I was on the launch of Turning Point UK in late 2018, early 2019, and this comment calling us xenophobic, we were lambasted as racist and far right. We hadn't even tweeted anything in the UK. We hadn't released a single statement. So they were branding us before we even made a comment on British politics. And this is what the left do. They aren't interested in debate. That's why Charlie's dead, because they don't want to debate us. They want to label us. They want to shut us down. They want to silence us. And it looks like now if they can't silence us, they'll kill us.
Well, yes, because you have described these people, Jack, as evil. And this is just one example. And sadly, there are thousands. But this was posted the day before Charlie's visit to the Utah campus. Someone called Omar writing, Charlie Kirk is coming to my college tomorrow. I really hope someone evaporates him literally. The reply, let's just say something big will happen tomorrow. And this is all over social media, Jack. The Be Kind left, who left Elon Musk's X platform because they argued that the debate was too toxic, which actually meant that they didn't want there to be free speech, have been throwing a party over this. I mean, I completely endorse Turning Point UK using the word evil because, Jack, what we have seen over the past 24 hours is the definition of evil.
The mindset you have to have with the left as well, and this is why we have to shift our focus to looking at the far left as extremists, because historically, as conservatives, we think they're wrong, we think they're silly university students, but they genuinely believe we're Nazis, they believe we're fascists, they believe we're evil, and that justifies it. So they're celebrating the fact that Charlie was assassinated because they see it as a victory. They see it as the equivalent of, say, Hitler being shot. And it's not just... I think the worrying thing is it's not just they call us these slurs, but those at the top who orchestrate these attacks on conservatives, they know that they're brainwashing their far left thugs into actually believing that these people like Charlie, are Nazis, which is laughable in itself because Charlie's done immense work actually shutting down the far right in America.
But it's happening here too. And Nick Tenconi, I have to say, there is an irony. And obviously, I think it's brilliant that all of the right have united over the past day to pay tribute to Charlie Kirk. Of course, that is brilliant. But there is an irony there because a lot of the things that Charlie said were the same things that you've been cancelled for, that I've been cancelled for, that Tommy Robinson has been cancelled for. And I mean, if you look at Charlie Kirk and Tommy Robinson, for example, he was posting on what was then Twitter, tweeting in 2018 about the irony of Sadiq Khan talking about free speech when Tommy Robinson was languishing behind bars in prison. So this idea that the mainstream right in the United Kingdom was on a wavelength with Charlie Kirk, I think is actually very wrong. He was ahead of where they were at. And certainly when it came to the cancellation of Tommy Robinson, he understood before most people did.
Well, certainly what we've seen now with the attempted assassination, and this is what it comes down to, of President Trump last year, and now with the murdering of Charlie Kirk, is it's a declaration of war. It's an all-out escalation. Jack's point is absolutely spot on, and I'd like to echo it. These individuals on the left think that they are killing Nazis. They genuinely, no matter what work we do on the right to highlight the dangers and toxicity of far-right ideology, far-right behavior, far-right grooming, it doesn't matter. Charlie's is a very reasonable, open-minded and fair man. So it's an enormous escalation, and it hasn't just started yesterday, God rest his soul. It started with the attack on President Trump as well. So we are now reevaluating and reviewing everything that needs to happen to protect ourselves more so, and also to continue the work with gusto of Charlie Kirk, God rest his soul, on the university campuses. Aristotle said that courage is the greatest virtue, and courage is a central tenet of our faith, which is Christianity as well. So now it's about turning our heads to what happens next on university campuses, standing up for the fact that Charlie Kirk has now been martyred, and understanding that the mainstream media, going back to the 2018 comment, Dan, the mainstream media aren't our friends. For so very long, our opponents and enemies have gone unopposed in so many ways, and they are emboldened and enabled by tremendous funding and tremendous support and a very warped, bizarre mindset, which is constantly enabled by law enforcement, again, calling out individuals like Sadiq Khan, politicians, leaders. That's why Jack and I do what we do alongside individual Nigel Farage, like Tommy Robinson, etc. We are all united right now on the right, and our message is clear. Charlie will not be the last martyr, and thanks be to God, I'm sure he's in heaven right now, and we will continue to carry the torch, standing up to the establishment, the deep state, the mainstream media, those who have murderous intent, be they illegal invaders, be they unhinged lefties. This only serves to embolden and to empower us to stand up to our enemies. But this is an escalation, and as Jack has rightly said, this is evil, and it is an act of war also.
It absolutely is. So, Jack, obviously security and safety is most important. I also listen to Nick's words there, and I think, just imagine if the UK was able to properly unite on the right. Imagine if this was the event, actually, that was able to make it happen. It would be so powerful. And I know it's early days for you, but where to now for Turning Point UK without Charlie Kirk, without your founder?
Well, Charlie's certainly left a hole in both our politics and politics in America. But we're not going to let this stop us. This is what terrorists want. They want us to be intimidated. They want us to stop. If anything, this has awoken something both here and in the States, because Charlie was such a good man. He was not an extremist. He was, a common sense conservative, and they've done this to him. So for us, we're not backing down. We're not going to hide away. We're not going to pause our activism. In fact, we're already discussing renewing our university activism, because we pulled it before because it was too dangerous, because we would be attacked by masked Antifa and the police would do nothing to protect us. But actually, we can't let them win. We can't let them bully us off of campuses. It's time for us to take what Charlie's done, hold the torch he's given us, and run with it.
Nick, a final word to you.
I want to just say that this is tough, Dan. I'm not going to lie to you. This is really tough. Charlie was 31 years old. It's literally nothing. Two small girls and a loving, devout wife. So I am filled with rage over this. Charlie was huge. His voice, his profile, as Jack mentioned, there's been huge blowing up of Charlie's profile, more so because of the South Park clip and because of debating on a podcast recently where he takes on people individually, etc. That he has grown bigger and bigger very rapidly in the near just recent future. And the people that want us dead, Charlie, God rest his soul, me, Jack, you, Tommy Robinson, deep state, communists, Islamists, the people that want us dead, I have a very clear message. And well, Jack and I both have a very clear message as politicians and as activists as well, is that a shot at Charlie Kirk is a shot at all of us, and it is a declaration of war, and there will be consequences for that behaviour, and we should really explore with gusto getting back on the university campuses to stand up. Now is even more important a time to be standing up for conservative voices on the university campuses. And I just want to say once again that our thoughts and prayers are with Erica and Charlie's family as well. And may God have mercy on his soul.
Nick Tenconi, Jack Ross of Turning Point UK, more reason than ever to support Turning Point UK today. Thank you both so much. So let's try and make sense of this all now. No one better to do that with than the historian and broadcaster, senior fellow at the New Culture Forum, also behind his own YouTube channel, Rafe Hadel-Manku. Rafe, you've obviously heard the emotion there. I mean, two guys whose boss was Charlie Kirk, and what bravery from them to say, actually, we previously pulled our university events, but because we don't want to show the hard left that they've won, we're going to go back to the university campuses. It very much echoes what Tommy Robinson was telling me near the top of the show. We cannot let these people win. But when you look at what's been happening today, Rafe, the picture released by the FBI of this suspect since we've been on air, the revelation from Stephen Crowder that the gun cartridges discovered near the scene were inscribed with trans and anti-fascist ideology, it's very hard not to believe that there is now not a targeted campaign against those of us on the right.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I'm full of admiration for those people like Turning Point and others who aren't going to be cowed by this, who do understand that freedom and liberty are worthless and meaningless if you're not prepared to stand up for them. And, for them to actually willingly commit to that just hours after the death of their founder, I think deserves our plaudits. Because you are quite right. We are in a state now where we will no longer be lectured to by the left, as they have done for a decade or more, that it's from the right that political violence comes. And no more should we ever allow the media class, the left, academia to get away with denouncing decent, well-meaning people in Britain and America as far-right thugs, because we know where those thugs are. They're firmly on the left. That's not to say that there is no violence coming from the right, but if you look particularly in America at what's happened in the last few years, I'm afraid the vast majority of the violence has come from the right. I mean, we've had the assassination attempts on President Trump. We had the murder, you remember, of Ben Thompson, the Medicare healthcare CEO who was allegedly murdered by the suspect, Louis
And what about
Mangione.
David Amos in this country?
We had David Amos, but in 2017, we had the House Majority Leader in America, Stephen Scalise, was shot as well by a Bernie Sanders supporter. We had at the Israeli embassy in Washington, 2 employees were murdered by a man who was shouting "Free, free Palestine." And now you have Charlie Kirk added to that list in America. And yes, of course, you have examples over here as well. And the irony, of course, the fascists are the anti-fascists. Antifa are the fascists. They are the danger. And it's, of course, they are being aided and abetted by the media, by the political class in this country as well, by people like our new Deputy Prime Minister, David Lammy, who called the Brexiteers Nazis, literally on stage called them Nazis. When you tell people that the MAGA movement, that the reform movement, that those people who want to control immigration are like Nazis or are literal Nazis, when you equate our leaders with Hitler, is it any surprise that the dim, the confused, the ideologues on the left will be taken in by that and think the very worst of us? And all of the polling shows internationally in the Anglosphere that the left have a visceral hatred and animosity towards the right that isn't shared the other way. 100%. You never hear anyone going around saying Labour scum or Liberal Dem scum, but how often do you hear Tory scum?
We are the decent people. That is the reality. We have to start saying that. And I also like the honesty of people from the right, Rafe, who are actually saying, this has rocked me, this has terrified me. The most high profile, Jeremy Clarkson, one of the most famous men in the country. Some people hope he could be our Donald Trump, who posted after the assassination of Charlie Kirk, for the first time in my life, I'm genuinely frightened about being a newspaper columnist. Carl Benjamin of Lotus Eaters replied, now that's another tough man, right? These are tough men. We're all afraid because our opponents are insane. It's chilling.
They're insane, and they think that we are evil. This is the distinction. Myself, the comments that I've made about immigration, my fight against Islamic extremism and so forth, we all now have to think and wonder about where this leaves us in this situation. Thankfully, Britain is still a far more peaceful country than America. You know, we talk often about civil war, and in the hours following the death of Charlie Kirk, many people on the right have said we are now in a state of war. And of course, famously, we've had, I'm sure you've had on your channel, David Betts talking about the potential for civil war. Civil war does not mean an American civil war where you have literally tanks in the street fighting each other. What they're talking about here, what we're really talking about, is the importation of sectarianism, like we had in Northern Ireland, of two vehemently opposed groups with the British Army or the American Army in between. And I think things like Charlie Kirk's assassination show us what form that will take. It's not that dissimilar to what we saw between the IRA and the loyalists in Northern Ireland, where you had Protestants and Catholics assassinating each other, terrorist activity, and the army called in to try to bring peace and separate the two. And I fear it's that sort of civil disobedience, it's that sort of retreat into our echo chambers where we are at risk of going to a head. And it's going to be the decent people of Britain stuck in the middle, as you have an increasingly reactive far right in this country, I think, will emerge to defend this nation against the combined forces of Islamism and these far left woke ideologues.
Yes, and Rafe, what is so upsetting to me about the loss of Charlie Kirk is that he was such an ally to our United Kingdom, and he cared. Yes, he was the ultimate patriotic American. I really do believe he would have been US president one day. So of course it is such a great loss, and I'm not trying to compare the loss that the US feels to the loss that we feel, but he really cared about the United Kingdom. He knew about our decline, and he knew how important the revolution that is hopefully coming to the United Kingdom was going to be. I just wanted to pay tribute to Charlie Kirk today, Rafe, by showing the opening of his incredible address to the Oxford Union, his last visit this would have been to the United Kingdom.
It's great to be here tonight. Thank you to the Oxford Union for inviting me. I never went to university. I take that as a great compliment. So therefore, everyone who went to university should be able to run circles around me. You'll be the judge, but I'll do my best. Has Donald Trump gone too far? Well, I can nitpick at how vague that question is. What is too far exactly? Are his tweets too long? Can all of us even agree on what we're aiming at? I don't think so. The truth is this: if you dislike the West, and if you hate the West's values, if you think the West is evil fundamentally and deserves to be destroyed, then anything Donald Trump does basically short of surrender will be too far for you. If I was visiting this school 100 years ago, speaking in support of an American president, I think we would at least have some broad agreement on what a country's leader should be trying to do. But we don't anymore. I don't think it's because America's changed. In fact, I think it's because Britain has changed. From my perspective, Britain is one of the greatest countries in the history of the world. You were the country of Shakespeare, the steam engine, and Adam Smith. You defeated Napoleon. You destroyed the slave trade. You stood up to Hitler. My country, America, became great as it is because of what we inherited from you, from Britain. When I hear the slogan, "Make America Great Again," I'm also hearing, quote, "Return America to its British roots." Great Britain has everything in the world to be proud of. But when I look at Britain today, I see a country where the ruling elites are in a race to abandon the very values, the values that made them so great in the first place.
Thank you, Charlie Kirk. We'll try and save this country and do you proud. Breaking today, slippery Starmer, the United Kingdom's corrupt and embattled Prime Minister, must surely now go after the decision, far too late, to sack Peter Mandelson as the ambassador to the United States, a man who he personally appointed after it emerged that he was not just a best friend, but a career advisor to Jeffrey Epstein, America's most infamous pedophile, even after his conviction for soliciting a young girl. Now, of course, it's extraordinary to me that Mandelson ever ended up in that position. And when people try and say that Candace Owens is in some way a conspiracy theorist or mad for suggesting that a network of pedophiles is running the world, then how on earth do you explain Mandelson's elevation to one of the most important positions for United Kingdom in the world? But of course, what happened to Mandelson also raises a lot of questions about Prince Andrew, too. Why was the late Queen's favourite son completely cast out of public life when Mandelson, who was far closer to Epstein than Andrew ever was, saw his career elevated? Rafe Hadelman-Koo with me now. Rafe, let's look at the politics of this first. Starmer cannot survive this, can he? He's lost as Deputy Prime Minister. He's now lost as US Ambassador. But the point is, this was not some secret that emerged, Rafe. He went in with his eyes wide open. The security concerns about Mandelson were always well known. The close friendship with Epstein was always well known. And even yesterday, Rafe, he stood up at PMQs and insisted that Mandelson had his full support. So as far as I'm concerned, not only is Starmer morally bankrupt, he's now politically toast. This is the end.
And it's not only people like us who are saying this, it's members of the Labour Party, it's people sitting on the green benches behind Keir Starmer who are saying much the same thing. How Starmer could not see this Mandelson disaster coming shows you that the man has zero political instinct whatsoever. You know, there are only two cast iron rules in British politics. One is that when a Prime Minister loses an election, he has to move out of number 10 Downing Street. The second rule is that when Lord Mandelson accepts a government job, he's going to resign in disgrace within a few months. Those are the two rules. And this is the third time that he's resigned in disgrace. And that Starmer wasn't able to predict that this was inevitably going to happen, especially given his knowledge of Mandelson's friendship with Epstein, just goes to show you how ill-suited he is for that role. And, you know, I'm just amazed that Starmer continues to be so arrogant. How can you be arrogant when you have nothing to be arrogant about? You're so naive. And this entire party of his stinks because just 18 months ago, these people thought they were, the bright heralds of a new dawn. You had leading British commentators like Andrew Marr and others saying, well, the serious people are coming in. They are, they are not corrupt or anything else. Well, I'm sorry. They're now spending their time defending Starmer over accepting gifts from Lord Ali for himself and his wife, spending time discussing Angela Rayner's multiple house purchases, and now defending the Dark Prince himself, Lord Mandelson, over his friendship with a paedophile, utterly corrupt. Everything that they accuse Boris Johnson and the Tories of, they are doing themselves. It's the uniparty scandals. They're one and the same, whether Labour or Tory. The man has to go. The question is when. I forecast a while back that he wouldn't lead the government into the next general election. The question is whether he'll still be here by Christmas.
Big time. Now, the problem is, though, Rafe, I actually think there's a much bigger story here. And it is about the acceptability of paedophiles and of totally sexually bankrupt behavior amongst our elites. And this is what we're learning about the Macrons, and whether you believe that Brigitte is a man or a woman, it's not really the point. That was a paedophilic relationship, which is now at the heart of French politics. And the fact that Mandelson is so readily accepted back in, does it not say something about the moral standards of the people who not just run our country, but run the world? Because this is the globalist elite.
Well, there are two branches to say that. Yes, that certainly seems as if there is a double standard and a two-tier system that applies to our elite class and their activities. But as I would say, personally speaking, I would say with Mandelson, it's something very different here. First and foremost, because Mandelson is gay. He's a homosexual, and I've not heard of any stories about Epstein procuring young boys or procuring young men below the age of minority on his islands or whatever. So I think perhaps that's one of the reasons why there's not necessarily the whiff of sexual scandal around Mandelson, whereas we know this was a man who loved being around the rich and famous. That was his Achilles heel. He wanted a lifestyle he couldn't afford. And if you look at that photograph of him with Epstein on that island, where Epstein is wearing a shirt and trousers, Mandelson is in a white robe. He's clearly been for some spa treatment or out of the pool. And he's got this adoring look, almost like Epstein's lapdog. And this is a man who claims to be such an important figure in British politics, but he simply found the aphrodisiac of wealth and power so much that he was willing to put aside all common sense and all good ideas about what he should be doing in life.
Well, the emails, the leaked emails, Rafe, are truly reprehensible, truly morally reprehensible. Peter Mandelson, who, by the way, has been at the heart of every Labour government of the modern age, which, again, should tell you something about Labour, was quite literally advocating for Jeffrey Epstein to use his conviction for child trafficking, for paedophilia, as a way to relaunch himself. It's truly sick. And I just want to show you how he reacted, Rafe, when Harry Cole of The Sun asked him whether the Epstein files should be released. Watch this.
President Trump seems reluctant to clear the decks on this one. Would you be, in a personal capacity, be supportive of the Epstein files, so-called Epstein files being released?
That's not a matter for me. That's
a personal matter, as someone who's potentially named in them, would you have any problem with them being published?
I don't believe I'm named in Epstein files. I have no doubt at all that there's a lot of traffic, correspondence,
emails,
exchanges
letters
between us. Absolutely. And we know those are going to surface. We know they're going to come out. We know they're going to be very embarrassing. And they know that I'm going profoundly to regret ever having met him and been introduced to him in the first place. But I can't rewrite history. What I can do is express my profound sympathy for those who were badly treated by him. And secondly, I can accept, yes, I can accept that I continued my association with him for too long.
Have you discussed this with the Prime Minister, and do you retain his full support on this matter? And have you discussed it with the President?
I haven't discussed it with either the President or the Prime Minister, and I hope that I'm doing a good enough job as ambassador here in the United States.
I mean, doesn't that say it all? That he hadn't actually even discussed it with Slippery Starmer.
Yeah. I mean, but the thing is, there you've got the master of the dark arts, a man famed for his ability to slither and slide out of any situation. But even here, the game is up, and even he couldn't cover up what we all see. And it's the moral bankruptcy of the man, and it's the ineptitude of his leader, Keir Starmer. This is the thing. This is a man who continued to befriend someone after he knew that he was a paedophile and a child prostitution procurer, and continue that relationship all for the sake of having fancy holidays, having access to powerful people. And that's the moral bankruptcy that's at the heart of the globalist elite network. They don't care what you've done, so long as you are in a position of power to help and influence them.
Rafe, can you feel that this is a little bit unfair on Prince Andrew? I mean, he lost everything, and really his relationship with Epstein was nowhere near as close as that of Mandelson, who found himself promoted.
I'm not as forgiving as perhaps you are. Yes, certainly you could say that Mandelson had a stronger relationship. However, of course, as I said, there was no hint of sexual impropriety on behalf of Mandelson. Prince Andrew is still innocent under the eyes of the law. He has not been tried or found guilty of anything, but unfortunately, he's been tried in the eyes of the public court. And for better or worse, the monarchy lives or dies by public opinion. And I'm afraid his lack of judgment, similar to that of Mandelson, knowingly continuing to befriend and even in fact stay at the residence of somebody who was convicted for those insidious and evil crimes, does call into question his judgment, just as he was willing to lay down his life for Queen and country during the Falklands War. I'm afraid the fallout of the Epstein scandal gave him a similar challenge to go out into the wilderness and to sacrifice his public life for the sake of the monarchy. And I think he's done that nobly, but I think that's where he has to remain.
Yeah, I mean, by the way, I'm not defending what Prince Andrew did. My view on the whole Epstein saga, though, is that Ghislaine Maxwell and Prince Andrew have been the very easy people to blame in all of this, right? Like, let's not look at Bill Clinton. Let's not look at Bill Gates. Let's go for the two Brits. Let's go for the two Brits with connections to the royal family, because we know that's where the tabloid interest is going to be. And they are the only people who truly have been punished for what happened with Jeffrey Epstein. And I do think there's more to emerge on this. And certainly what I do think we can all agree on is that Starmer's judgment absolutely proves that he is no longer fit to be the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. And as Rafe Hadelman-Koo says, it may take weeks, it may even take months, but this is now a morally bankrupt, lame duck Prime Minister. Breaking today, King Charles's meeting with Prince Harry wasn't as it seemed, with the duplicitous Duke given the cold shoulder during a very short meeting with no special treatment, where he was even forced to drive through the public entrance rather than being given the special passage that Sophie, the Duchess of Edinburgh, was allowed to use just 20 minutes before his arrival. And if you look at this picture from Meghan's mole, which juxtaposes Prince Harry's face arriving at Clarence House to that of him leaving, certainly it is clear that he wasn't happy with the outcome. So we're learning quite a lot about actually what went down in that meeting. Lady Colin Campbell reporting here on Outspoken that Prince Harry was in the room for less than half an hour. Even Woke ITV, major allies of Prince Harry, say the meeting only went on for 45 minutes. Then when you look at exactly what went down and Charles's schedule. Let's take this from The Sun, for example, which reports on the private tea reunion. The schedule was absolutely fascinating and did not suggest that Charles wanted to spend any real quality time with Harry, because look at this. He attended the Privy Council meeting from 3:45 to 4:15, then an investiture with 95-year-old Holocaust survivor Manfred Goldberg from 4:15 to 5 p.m. Harry arrived through the Clarence House gates at 5:21 p.m. Charles then began a meeting with an Australian dignitary at 6:10 p.m. and Harry was seen driven away at 6:14 p.m. Yesterday, Sophie the Duchess of Edinburgh was seen leaving Clarence House just 20 minutes before Harry arrived. Tellingly, Harry and his driver, Barack Obama's former bodyguard, Christopher Sanchez, were made to use the visitors' entrance, and they were not driven in through the gate on the Mall, which was used earlier by the King and Sophie and is for members of the royal family. Ouch. That's got to hurt. Rafe Hadelman-Koo. The optics of this, I think, from King Charles have maybe been more clever than I initially believed. What I will say, and I'm going to be very honest about this, I still believe the monarch has made a huge mistake. I think Harry is using this meeting for commercial gain. He needs proximity to the royal family to try and get these big deals in America. And we know that he is not only morally bankrupt at the moment, but financially bankrupt too. And I totally agreed with William's position, which is that this was a man, just like the Duke of Windsor before him, who deserved to stay in exile for the rest of his life. However, Rafe, this was not the choreography of a meeting of a loving father wanting to spend quality time with his darling son. He was treated like a sort of low-level dignitary coming in for the lowest amount of access. And we're also told that Queen Camilla was there and that Charles had no one-on-one time with Harry whatsoever. So even though the mainstream media, Rafe, are trumpeting this idea of this being the big royal reunion, actually, was Charles sending a bit of a message that this is, I guess, a very tentative start?
That's precisely what it is. And the use of the term low-level dignitary is quite correct, because along with the ignominy of having to enter not through the entrance that other members of the royal family use, he also had to suffer the indignity of being stuck in the traffic of London due to the London tube strike, where he wasn't given the blue lights police escort that would have been able to cut through the traffic. He had to deal with it just as any other Londoner would have to deal with it. And he was...
If we're stuck in traffic, you bloody better be too, Harry, because we don't even want you here.
Exactly. So it began a lot longer. So he should have got some knowledge as to what was awaiting him. And remember, the last time that Prince Harry was in the country, he wanted to have a meeting with his father, we're told, and the king said that he wasn't available. This time, he is available, but only for a very small amount of time. It seems to me clearly that His Majesty or his advisors are only doing these things very incrementally, step by step. And I'm sure that that meeting that was held between Prince Harry's chief aides and the King's chief aides very publicly on the balcony of the Royal Overseas League Club looking over St. James's Park included some requirements from the Duke of Sussex that he wouldn't talk about any conversation that he had with his father. I suppose they're waiting to see whether he still holds true to that.
Yes,
because
by
past performance, he certainly has been very free in speaking when it comes to revealing conversations, and the level of trust has been completely eradicated. So you can completely understand why the king will be reticent to speak anything other than the briefest of niceties to his estranged son.
This is a test, absolutely. There was no trust in that meeting, from what I'm told. Absolutely. Charles's warning, you keep this between us and let's see if you can really do that, because we know Harry's going to immediately get on the phone to Meghan Markle. And so even if Harry stays quiet, will she? Now, look, I want to show you some reporting from Tom Sykes. He's the European editor-at-large for the Daily Beast, but also runs the Royalist blog on Substack. And this was from there. And his contention, Rafe, is that The reason Charles actually ended up going through with this meeting is because he is desperate for a reunion with Archie and Lily, the two children, his two grandchildren, who of course he hasn't seen in years. Watch this.
Is where does it go from here? Like, it's definitely not going to end with Harry getting his patronages back, getting a palace back, becoming a member of the working royal family again. Like, we all know that that is not going to happen. But it's also a completely pointless meeting if it doesn't wind up with Charles meeting his grandchildren. And that has to be the end game here, I would suggest. If we can't get to a stage where a man can see his grandchildren in the last years of his life, I think that's just a really tragic kind of indictment on all of them. This person says, I don't begrudge Charles for seeing his son, but I hope he isn't bringing him back. I think that probably sums up what most people think about Charles. I think that most people think, yeah, we don't begrudge Charles seeing his son. Of course we don't. Of course we don't. But how people feel about Harry, I think, is a different matter.
But Rafe, isn't there a major problem with this? That Harry has made it clear, and he did so in the BBC interview too, that he has no intention of Meghan, Archie or Lily coming back to the country until he receives the full security detail, which the government will not give him for very good reason. And Charles will not get involved and overrule his government, which would plunge us into a constitutional crisis. So we're still at loggerheads.
And I would hate to think that that's also the thinking of Prince Harry, that he thinks perhaps he could use his children as some sort of bargaining chip.
But he is.
To get something with. I would
that
hope
is
to think
what
that
he's
that's
doing,
not.
Rafe.
Yes, well,
but he just is.
And this
he's
is the
dangling
point.
those children, Rafe. And I think it's sick given the king's health. Sorry to interrupt, but I think that is exactly what he is doing.
You have to remember, of course, this is a royal family, and the king, of course, is and always has been a doting father. And aside from all of the politics and all the drama, this is a man who has always, throughout this terrible period of estrangement, has always left the door open, has always, as a Christian monarch, has always hoped that his son would prove to be that prodigal son. And he did extend olive branches repeatedly, obviously. All of those were spurned. And now, of course, the king is not in great health still undergoing weekly cancer treatment, never seen one of his grandchildren. So yes, you would hope that there would be some sort of compromise where Prince Harry would, bring them over out of nothing more than just decency and love for his father to enable that to happen. And we can just hope that it happens sooner rather than later.
Well, indeed, because of course, the other thing that Tom Sykes says, Rafe, is that all of this has to be seen in the context of the fact, and the mainstream media don't like to discuss this, and of course I like to do so sensitively, but the fact that Charles is dying. Watch this.
As far as I can tell, people are pretty hostile to Harry and are concerned on the king's behalf that he's going to be exploited, basically, and that Harry's going to reveal secrets from the meeting. Don't forget, it was only in May, 2nd of May this year, that Harry went on television and said, my father won't speak to me. He could fix my whole security problem at the drop of a hat. And I don't know how long he has left. Now, that was an incredibly inflammatory thing to say. The palace has done nothing for the past year. They go, the king's fine, the king's fine, the king's great, the king's fantastic, the king's never been better. Even though we can all see that, Charles is losing weight. He doesn't look great. He's very tired when he's out and about. He looks very tired when he's out and about on jobs. We've been through it all before with the Queen, right? We were all told for years, there's nothing wrong with the Queen. There's nothing wrong with the Queen. And we could see the weight falling off her in front of us, and, the awful things happening. And so I think that what I'm trying to say is that really, I think that you have to see this in the context of just understanding that these probably are the last years of Charles's life.
And he's gone further on with that on his Substack, Rafe, writing, the Harry-Charles reconciliation makes a lot of sense if you understand King Charles is dying. Prince Harry's long overdue meeting with his father yesterday is best understood as a subplot to the grander narrative of impending succession. But again, this just makes me feel repulsed by Harry. Repulsed. This is your father. He is the King of England. He's agreed to see you. All he wants is to see and have a relationship with his grandchildren before he dies. And you're making that difficult for him. I mean, the fact, Rafe, that he thinks that this is ever going to endear him again to the British public. And I know we've had this big performance this week from Harry, which has just made me cringe. I think it's been awful, actually. He's like a man baby. But it's like, what we will never forget, Rafe, is that you made the Queen's life miserable in her final years, Prince Philip's life miserable in his final years. Now you are doing the same to your goddamn father. It's unforgivable.
Well, I was just going to say it's unforgivable, but precisely that. It's unforgivable and it's unnecessary. And I'll tell you why it's so unforgivable, particularly because the royal family make private visits all the time around the world that we aren't aware of.
Yes.
Her late Majesty the Queen loves horses. She was going to Kentucky all the time to go and see horse breeders out there. We were never aware of that. His Majesty has just been in Scotland. My God, Harry with his family could get on a private jet. They could go to Canada even to do a change of plane or whatever, but they could fly to Scotland. Nobody would see them take off. Nobody would see them land. They would get into their vehicles with, shielded windows and go straight to Balmoral or Birkhall, and they could be home, and nobody would even have been aware that they had been in the country. There is no excuse for not taking your children to see their sickly grandfather.
100%, 100%. Now, can we just talk about Harry's performance this week? Because, again, he thinks that he's being really clever, right? He thinks that what he's doing is overshadowing Prince William and sort of proving that the world loves the idea of this cheeky, chappy prince. And it's like, let's see if there's a way to tap into what the British public used to like about Harry. Personally, and remember, I'm pretty much the same age as William, so not that far off from Harry. Personally, I'm like looking at him thinking, you're acting like you're 21. You've got to grow up. This is mortifying. And he went to the Swell Child Awards, Rafe, and he made a joke in front of a very unwell young man called Declan Bitmead, who'd actually won this Inspirational Young Person Award, about his family. And I thought it was so awful. Harry asked him, because this young man told him that he had a brother. And Harry asked him, does he drive you mad? And Declan replied, no, we get on fine. Harry replied, you know what, siblings. Then when told his brother went to the same school, Harry said, you're at the same school. That sometimes makes it more challenging. Now, this poor young guy, Declan, clearly found the whole thing uncomfortable. We know what Harry was trying to do, make headlines, given his feud with William. And I found it very uncomfortable. And then there's a couple of little pieces of footage too, which again, I think just show how immature Harry is. Watch this.
I said for many years that I still have a child inside of me.
Have you got brothers and sisters?
Yeah, I've got a younger brother.
Does he drive you mad or does he not?
No, we get along fine.
And it's like, grow up. I mean, I just feel like this whole strategy is wrong.
Yeah, well, he is immature. He is a child. It's the tiaras and tantrums are what you expect from social media influencers in their 20s, not from a prince of the realm and a soldier, an experienced soldier in his 40s. This is a man who is essentially a middle-aged child. He has not accepted that he's middle-aged. And, he simply can't help himself. There he is trying to mend bridges with his father, with his majesty, at the same time having a dig at his brother, and he can't help it. I mean, that goes to show the level of immaturity. And just remember, when his recently failed court case against His Majesty's government, the first member of the royal family to take his father's government to court, he was hoping till the 11th hour that the king would step in magically on his side. I mean, a completely dreamlike fantasy world that he lives in. Look, we know that he is a bird in a gilded cage in California. He hates his life. He's living in Meghan's world. All his social contacts are Meghan's contacts. She's got what she wanted to out of the relationship. She's now mixing with A-listers, or at least B or C listers.
Yeah, more like Z-listers these days.
Yeah, but she's got her wannabe Martha Stewart show going. Whatever she's going to get out of the monarchy she has, he can only be a prince or a polo player or a soldier. And none of those can he be in America. And I think he deeply regrets what's happened. And he wishes he hadn't had what happened over the last few years and that he remained here. And this is his attempt to remind us of the old Harry. But I'm sorry, far too much water has gone under that bridge. He's made his bed, and now I'm afraid he has to lie in it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think while Prince William, Rafe, keeps his position on Harry, the public will keep our position. Do you see what I think the public feel a lot of loyalty to William and Catherine after the past couple of years. And I think we view what Harry put these two through at such a terrible time in their life as close to unforgivable, actually. So as far as I'm concerned, and I don't mean to be cruel at all to Charles, but really the decisions that he makes about Harry are going to end up being irrelevant at some point in the future, because William wants this guy in exile. And at some point, Rafe, he will have the power to ensure that that is the case. And I mean, I'm constantly told that as it stands, William doesn't even want to have Harry at his coronation, which would be a huge call.
Yes, well, look, what we're talking about here is the rapprochement between a father and an estranged son. It's a deeply personal family matter. What you're talking about absolutely is about the succession to the throne, and it's about the monarchy as an institution. And certainly in no context, even if the king was overjoyed to see his son, is there any path back for the Duke of Sussex? So yes, whatever happens with His Majesty the King, certainly the doors to the drawbridge has been lifted to the castle, and it's not coming down for Prince Harry at any point.
Well, what a day of news, Rafe. What a day of news. No one who I would rather discuss it with more than you. And of course, you should follow Rafe Hadelman-Koo on YouTube for much more of his analysis. He is also a senior fellow at the brilliant New Culture Forum and a broadcaster and historian. Rafe, so good to have you today.
Thanks so much, Dan.
And thank you for all of your feedback today, all of your super chats. I mean, I've been looking at them throughout and they've really been heartening. Abita says, I just want to say rest in peace to Charlie Kirk and Irina Zarutska. The Be Kind left showing their true face. I will be down at the Freedom Rally on the 13th of September. We all stand by Charlie Kirk. Funky Junkie says, thank you. Please stay safe, Tommy Robinson. And anyone who is standing up to corruption. I would be there on Saturday, but I was butchered by a surgeon. Oh my God. Well, I hope you're okay. But, I've got news on that coming tomorrow. We've got very exciting news coming tomorrow. If you cannot be at the United Kingdom, the rally on Sunday, this is where you're going to, on Saturday, sorry, this is where you're going to need to be. But I'm going to tell you all about that tomorrow. Biological Female says Piers Morgan has some front. Sussex Guy says we had a 16-year-old schoolboy murdered yesterday at our local train station in Seaford. The murderer was also 16. What TF, I know what you mean there, has happened to this generation? Private Jose says absolutely disgusting the way the left speak about Charlie. These people need to be arrested and sent to prison ASAP. Rest in peace, Charlie. You will be missed. And DD says, we are all Charlie. R.I.P. my Christian brother. Thank you so much to Nina Vanava, who believes that all three of our Union Jackass nominees are evil people, and we're going to come to them very shortly. Other comments here. Paige Adair says, people who can't stand dissent and must silence voices in any way possible are cowards and simpleton. Charlie was a great man and a great voice. They still didn't silence him. They still haven't won. Paul Lockwood. The left will not be able to get away with this. Our leaders must be held accountable for their language. Very similar, Paul, to what Donald Trump said in the Oval Office last night. Lind Kent said, murdered with a microphone in hand. Let's not forget the words of common sense. Truth is now being taken. Let's carry Charlie Kirk's words forward. And Susie Emily says, sorry, Dan, this is making me too effing angry. These people are sick. Not sick as in disgusting, although that is also the case, but sick in their head, mentally sick. I have to say I agree. I saw a post on X from someone saying, we didn't act like this. When Joe Cox was murdered, we were horrified. Or when Gabby Giffords was shot in the head in the US, we were horrified. There is a deep evil sickness running amongst the left and the people who are celebrating what happened to Charlie Kirk today, and it's very, very worrying sign. Thank you so much for all of your feedback today. Now let's reveal today's Greatest Britain and Union Jackass. A reminder of your nominees. Bushra Sheikh, nominated by Sarah Booth for her despicable reaction to the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Prince Harry, nominated by Rose Juni for turning the Well Child Awards to be all about promoting his showmanship or lack thereof. And Joy Cheney, nominated by CJ Edmund, the BBC contributor that laughed at Charlie Kirk's death. Okay, the results are now in. In third place with 13% of the vote, Joy Cheney. The runner-up with 36% of the vote, Bushra Sheikh. But today's Union Jackass, Prince Harry. Now, he is going to go head-to-head with our other Union Jackasses from across the week. Let me just remind you of who they were. On Tuesday, Shabnam Mahmood. On Wednesday, Peter Mandelson. Well, that's quite a lineup, isn't it? Shabnam Mahmood versus Peter Mandelson versus Prince Harry. To be named the worst Briton in the world this week. We will announce it at the end of last week, at the end of tomorrow's show, but you're going to be able to vote straight after today's show in the posts tab on YouTube. Hope that makes sense. But today's Greatest Britain is an honorary, but there could only be one choice. Nominated by Real McCass, who writes, it goes without saying, but today's GB should be honorary and dedicated to Charlie Kirk after his brutal murder. He lived life to fight for free speech everywhere. He cared about Britain. His death will not be in vain. We collectively must fight for free speech and win. And fight for Charlie Kirk we will, and fight for this United Kingdom we will. And do be back with us tomorrow because Tommy Robinson has some big news to reveal about uniting the kingdom, which we will do on tomorrow's show. But we're moving on to Substack now. For my conversation with Lady Colin Campbell, you can sign up at www.outspoken.live. All of the big royal news of the day with Lady C. You know you love her. You know you love her. As a personal ask, I would also love it if you could sign up to my podcast as well. This really helps me on the podcast platforms, especially, by the way, if you are able to do that thing and rate and review. I'm an independent outfit. I don't have any of those big companies backing me. They do lots of things to, pull the strings of the algorithm and all that. So if you can just go on to Apple Podcasts or Spotify, we're on video on Spotify or wherever you get your podcast, search for Dan Wood and Outspoken, rate and review. It would be a little favor to me and I'd be ever so grateful. But I am so grateful for your company today. I'm not going to lie. I've found the past 20 hours so difficult, but we have a job to do and we will keep on doing that job and we will keep on doing it together. So we will be back live tomorrow, 5 p.m. UK time, midday Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific with Tommy Robinson. Hit subscribe right now if you're watching on YouTube or Rumble. And most importantly, I promise to keep fighting for you.